Okay, so it is 2 p.m. and we're going to go ahead and start our presentation. I did say this a couple of minutes ago, but I just want to remind everybody that we are going to be recording this and eventually it will land on our YouTube page just so you guys can go and review the presentation in case you have any questions or you're like, oh, I thought she said this, that, or the other. So if you don't want to be included in that presentation, or if you don't want to have your face memorialized on our YouTube page, please make sure to turn off your camera. Today we're going to be talking about the Security Deposit Assistance Program that LCHA administers. And I have with me today Natalie Arizmendi as well as Daisy Hurtado. I am going to go ahead and eventually give them the screen and they're going to complete their presentation. And then while Natalie and Daisy are presenting, I am going to be manning the chats. So at the end of our presentation, there is a Q&A session. So please, if you have a complex question, if you want to just say it out loud rather than typing it down, please keep yourself on mute and wait until that Q&A session to ask those important questions. But if you do want to put those in the chat, I'm going to be manning the chat while Natalie and Daisy are presenting. So if you have any questions for me or for the ladies as well, please feel free to ask that. Honestly, it benefits everybody if you ask a question out loud. So whether it's in the chat or at the end in the Q&A session, even if you think it's silly, please do ask that question. And that way everyone will benefit. Okay, well, with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and hand the baton off to Natalie and Daisy. I'm going to mute myself, and here we go.
Good afternoon, everyone. So like Liz said, we are going to go over a small presentation. So I am going to go ahead and share my screen. So let me know if you guys could see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. All right, so first and foremost, this is the Security Deposit Assistance Program. So we're gonna go over some of the requirements that you need in order to qualify for this program. Some of the documents that are necessary and any other information that has to do with this program, we're going to go over it, and just keep in mind that there is a chat. So if you do have any questions, just go ahead and type it in the chat, and we will get to your question. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So let's go. Okay, so let's go ahead and start by saying that we are a HUD certified housing counseling agency. Some of the services that we do provide here is financial literacy, budgeting, banking, credit repair, homelessness prevention, rental counseling, home purchase, preventing foreclosure, and fair housing. On the right side, you see Natalie's information and my information. So both of our extensions, we are the ones that manage the Security Deposit Assistance Program. So that is our contact information if you want to go ahead and write that down and you want to go ahead and contact us. And then there is also the security deposit email that you can also go ahead and use to either send documents, or if you have any questions, you can go ahead and reach us there. Like I said, it is securitydeposit@lakecountyha.org. And then our extensions are also on there. So feel free to write that down if you would like. So we do fall under the IDHS for homelessness prevention. So the security deposit does fall under homelessness prevention. So let's go ahead and get started on what is covered for the security deposit assistance. So what is covered is, of course, security deposit and up to 3 months of future rent. However, I do want to go ahead and clarify that not everyone is able to qualify for 3 months of future rent. So the only people that are allowed to qualify for the 3 months going forward is for households with rent over 40% of their household income. And we are going based gross income. So if you are paying 40% of more for rent of your income, then you qualify for the 3 months. And then I also want to go ahead and mention that we don't just do rent. You have to do security deposit. So we don't just assist for like 3 months of future rent. You have to qualify for security deposit in order to qualify for the 3 months. And of course, if you are paying 40% of your household income, but it is mandatory for you to receive security deposit. And then all costs must be reflected on the lease. So let's go over the basics. So the unit. The rental units must be in Lake County, Illinois. So these are all for future rental units, not current units. So these are the security deposit, you're able to qualify if you're moving into a new unit. You don't qualify if you're already in a unit. And for example, if you want a reimbursement, like if you already paid your security deposit, then you do not qualify. This is just for people who are moving into a new unit. And also, the landlord must agree to accept funds. We do not do direct to tenant. So if your landlord is not willing to participate with the program, then unfortunately you won't qualify for the program. We do need landlord participation. And I also do want to clarify that the renter must have already been accepted to the unit. You must have had an acceptance proven via call, an email. If you have a lease already, then that way you can like prove that, or you have a RAFTA if you're a voucher holder. We do go ahead and call the landlord to verify on our end as well. We do need to have approval. So if you submitted an application for a unit and you have not been approved fully, you pretty much won't qualify until you're already 100% approved for the unit. So the applicant must have experienced a crisis or an emergency. I'll go over what, some of the crisis or emergencies examples that may qualify you, but that will be on the next slide. So the applicant must be able to cover expenses of housing, utilities, and transportation after the assistance is issued. And then also there's no duplication of benefits for the previous 2 years. So if you were already assisted for this program within the last 2 years, then you won't qualify. Doesn't count as other rental assistance. We'll go over that later on in the presentation. Because I know you probably have questions about other programs that you might have applied for in the past, but we will go over that. So, but I do want to go ahead and say that you must have an experienced crisis and emergency. So I will go over that on the next slide, but you must be able to pretty much have an income to pretty much prove that you will be able to cover expenses or sustain your housing, your rent, your utilities, and your transportation after the security deposit assistance. So if you're probably wondering or questioning what is an emergency or what could be counted as an emergency, some of the examples are on the screen. So it could be a job loss or job reduction, a death of a household member, violence, unsanitary housing, foreclosure, eviction, termination of lease, medical bills, auto repairs, divorce, separation, dissolution of partnership, natural disasters, fire, flood, attorney costs. So pretty much anything that has happened unexpectedly that has affected your income or has affected your housing. If you have any questions on, some emergency or temporary crisis that you might have in mind and you're not sure if they will qualify you, you can always go ahead and you can ask us, you can ask it on the chat, or you can go ahead and contact us and let us know what it is. And then we'll let you know if that would count or what we would need in order for it to count. Documenting the emergency. So how do we prove the emergency? So let's say you lost your job. So we will need a letter of job termination. If you lost a family member, you can use a death certificate. If there is some type of violence, we can do like a police report. You can show us a police report that would count. We can do an article about a crime, an eviction notice, a 30-day notice to end lease, an attestation, which we will talk about in a few minutes. If you have medical bills, if your car broke down or you got in a car accident and you've had to pay out of pocket to fix your car, even like if you need new tires for the winter and you have a receipt for that, then that would qualify you as well. You can show us a receipt or a bill. Divorce or separation documents, foreclosure documents, a bill from an attorney, or declaration of emergency. What is an attestation? So what is an attestation? So it is a dated and a signed letter from a third party explaining the circumstances and attesting that this is a temporary crisis. So let's say you, for whatever reason, can't give us documentation of your crisis. This could be because, you don't have access to the paperwork, or you don't have access to these documents, or you're currently living in shelter, or the lease was terminated without a cause. You can use a reputable third party to sign a letter for you, explaining the circumstance and attesting that is a temporary crisis, which this could be from a doctor, a housing authority, a case manager, an attorney, a previous landlord, or even a pastor. Natalie's gonna go over the next few slides. So I will go ahead and have her unmute herself, and then she will finish off the last few slides. So give me 1 second. Let me go ahead and pass it over to Natalie. And then again, I just do want to mention that if you do have any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat and we will make sure to get to your question as soon as possible.
Okay, so now I will be going over more of how the process works, what you need in order to be eligible for the program. Daisy went over some of the things that you must know in order to apply for this program. So let's go over how we go over how you can cover these expenses, analyzing your costs, the proof of income, and all of those things that we do look at in order to determine your eligibility. So analyzing costs. So we do request for you to provide your income in order to determine whether or not you're eligible to cover the expenses for your housing, your utilities, and your transportation. So it's important that you are able to cover your housing as far as rent. For voucher holders, we only look at the tenant portion. So if you are only responsible for a portion of your rent, we're only looking at that portion of the housing. Now, for utilities, we do use a sheet that is universal. So we kind of predict your utilities, what you will be paying for your utilities. So we do look at that as well. And then we also discuss your transportation. So whether or not you are making monthly payments on a vehicle, your vehicle is paid off, how much your gas expenses are, and auto insurance. So we do take a look at all of that and take it in consideration based on your income. So that's why we do require your income. So Daisy, if you can do the next slide so we can go over what documents we can take for your income. Okay, so proving your coverage. These are some of the documentation that you can provide for your income. So if you're employed, you can provide paycheck stubs, bank statements, an employment letter if you are recently hired onto a job, then you can provide an employer letter, a welcome letter. Also for voucher holders. So for voucher holders, what you can provide is your tenant portion. And also if you have a utility allowance, this would be considered an income. So let's say that you don't have any, you're not employed and you don't have any income coming in from an employer, you can provide any cash gifts, any proof of cash gift that you're receiving from family members or friends. That can be proven by you providing a statement from either like sales account, Cash App account, any bank statement that shows your monthly income for the cash gift. Benefits also are allowed. So any award letters from a Social Security, disability, child support, and also retirement. So we will discuss with you before your appointment if whatever documentation you may have for income, if it's something that we can take in order to prove your income. Okay, so next slide, please. Documentation of benefits. Okay, so Daisy did mention that we cannot assist someone who has received this assistance in the last 2 years. So what does that mean? A lot of you guys may be familiar with rental assistance that we have provided in the past. So through FARA, LCRA, the court-based rental assistance program, even some voucher holders have questions whether or not they're eligible for this program. So yes, you are eligible. This is referring to the specific program that we're running. So the IDHS program, homelessness prevention program. For anyone that does receive this assistance and you want to come back, let's say in 6 months, that person is not eligible until after 2 years. So if you submit your application this January, you come back later on June of this year, unfortunately, we cannot take your application until 2 years later. So, okay, we can go to the next slide. All right, so now we're going over applications, how you can apply. There's 2 ways to apply. You can find our application online. So this will be a job form. I do suggest that everyone who decides on applying, that you're ready to submit documentation. It makes it way easier for you and the specialist who's taking your application, so either me or Daisy. When we receive your application, we go over everything, making sure that it's accurate information and that, you know, documentation that is required before your appointment is there. So that's very important. Let's go over what else you need for documentation. So before your appointment, you do have to have those in, so 24 hours before, otherwise you are at risk of having to reschedule your appointment. And we don't want to reschedule you because that means you will be at the end of the list. So for anyone who doesn't have a computer or doesn't know how to use a computer, you can do a printable version of this. You can print it out at home, fill it out, and then turn it back into us. You can either scan it in, you can drop it off at our office, fax it, but we do need that 24 hours before your actual appointment, as well as the document. So just keep in mind that without an application and without your documents, we won't be able to know that you're wanting to apply for the program if you do decide to do the printable version. So, okay, we can go to the next slide. So before your appointment, what does the LCHA staff do? We contact your landlord to verify that the unit was actually approved, that they're willing to participate in the program, and that, you know, just see where you're at in the process, as well if you're a voucher holder. So for voucher holders, if you are approved for the unit, but your landlord hasn't submitted a let's say they haven't submitted their move-in packet. Unfortunately, we can't take an appointment without you having a scheduled inspection. So that's very important for voucher holders to understand, because we don't want to find a scheduled appointment and then find out that we have to reschedule you because an inspection has not been made. So what else do we need to know? If the landlord denies the approval, we do close the application, unfortunately. That is one of the main reasons we do close an application, because without the participation of a landlord, we cannot take the applicant's application. So let's say that someone is applying and your landlord is not willing to participate. If you're looking for a new unit, you are always welcome to submit another application, but for that specific unit, we cannot take the application. If you have any questions about this, you can ask in the chat, or we can go over that at the end of the presentation. Okay, so if the landlord does not reply, let's say that we are trying to get a hold of your landlord before your appointment and they're not responding, what we do is we email them to make sure that they receive our contact. We also do encourage you guys, the clients, to give them a call, a heads up that they should be receiving communication from one of us in regards to their participation. Another thing is rescheduled appointments are going at the end of the list. So it is on a first come, first serve basis. So if it's an unfortunate situation, we understand that, but we do have clients who are, behind you. So just so you take note of that. So this is very important that you understand the landlord's participation, and that without their approval, we cannot move forward. You can go to the next slide, please. Okay, so correct information is key. So when you're filling out your application, please make sure that you are already approved, that you know that the phone number that you're providing for your landlord is accurate, that the email address is accurate as well, because if this is invalid information you're providing, you are at risk of having to, be rescheduled. And like I said, you go at the end of the list. So we don't want that. There is times where we will be reaching out to the client just to verify the landlord's information, but we want to avoid that. So just make sure that the landlord's information is accurate, okay? For voucher holders, like I said in the previous slide, I went over inspections. Please make sure that it's scheduled, make sure that the move-in packet was turned in already, and it will be a smoother process for us both. Okay, you can go to the next slide. Documents that are required. So we do need an application to be submitted to take an appointment. We also do collect a signed lease. So in order for us to deliver a check, we do need a signed lease in hand. So sometimes we do come into agreement with the landlord to maybe do a lease exchange for a check. So we determined that at the end of the application being reviewed, but it is important that we have a signed lease in order to, deliver the check. We do need your documentation to prove the emergency or crisis. So Daisy did go over what documentations we can receive from you that are required for this, the emergency crisis, documents that prove that the applicant can cover the expenses. So this means proof of income. So you do need to provide your proof of income so that we determine that you can cover your housing, your utilities, and your transportation. If you don't have some of these documents, we will be emailing you prior to your appointment, and we will let you know that you're missing something on there. Unfortunately, if you don't have most of these, we do have to reschedule you. So please make sure that you're submitting your required documents, please. Okay, you can go to the next slide. Okay, so what happens after your appointment? So if you do have all your documentation at the time of the appointment, it's a faster process. Of course, we still have to discuss with your landlord a payment method and, a signed lease and a few other things. But for the most part, we can tell you if you're approved or not. But let's say that someone is missing a document or two. We will give you 7 days to submit any missing documentation. What happens is the specialist, either me or Daisy, will be sending you a client action plan, which lists all of the documents that you may be missing for your application process to move forward. So once you have that, you are aware of what documents we're missing from you, and we're both on the same page on the process of your application. So after you're approved, after everything has been discussed with your landlord, we do request a payment. So it does take about 48 hours for direct deposits, and for checks, it could be sooner. It all depends on, like I said, when your landlord is confirming everything with us. Landlord is called to confirm the time of pickup for a check if it is that it's being exchanged for a signed lease. So if your landlord is not willing to hand out a signed lease to us, what we do is we either schedule an appointment with them to come pick up the check and then, provide us with a signed lease. And then after that, after you have been assisted, if you're approved for the program, you do have a housing counselor follow up with you, just so that we're making sure that everything is good, that is offering you any other services that we may have. And that's pretty much the process for the application. Do you want to go to the next slide, Daisy? And the counselor's offers are budgeting, financial literacy, fair housing, credit repair, landlord mediation, and other tenant resources. So after your follow-up, after your application, the follow-up will contain any of these that you may want to look into. So that's pretty much the presentation. Does anyone have questions? Me and Daisy will be answering any questions you guys may have.
Hi, how you doing?
Hello.
Hi. So I just tried to get in and do the application, and one of the questions I didn't understand, but it told me that I'm not eligible, but I'm trying to figure out why. I'm a cancer patient and I need the help.
Okay. So
so-
what are some of the questions that you answered no to? It could be that you either selected that your unit is not approved yet, that you already received the assistance through our program.
No, I haven't. I haven't received any assistance at all. Let me see. I'm sorry. I have to look at the question again.
Are you in Lake County?
Yes, I am.
Okay, and you're approved for the unit?
Yes. Well, we already live in the unit and we was trying to go somewhere else, and
It could be that, as we mentioned earlier, we cannot take your application unless it's for a new unit.
correct.
So, okay, and you do know what unit you're moving into already?
Not exactly which one, but yes, we're looking at something right away.
Okay, so then that might be the reason why you were not eligible, because you do need to make sure that you have the new unit's information, the landlord's information, the unit that you're moving into. So that's important in order for you to submit your application.
Okay. So if I tried again and try to put in the information of the unit place, you think it'll take me further or no?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, so it's stopping you there because we don't want any application that, doesn't have any unit information. So that indicates that you're not ready to submit your application yet because you don't have a unit confirmed.
oh,
So
okay,
that's why it's stopping you, yeah.
okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
So there was a great question in the chat, and I wanted to ask this. So one of the participants asked if a particular landlord had already accepted the funds. So my question to Natalie and Daisy was, have you found that the landlords evaluate who to take, or if they will take funding based on the apartment complex, or do you think it's more on like a case-to-case, tenant-by-tenant basis?
So for that specific, the towers on Genesee, I do believe that they do not accept the assistance. I did go ahead and give them a call about a tenant. And they said they don't work with Lake County Housing. However, we can call and confirm again. That's not an issue. We can go ahead and do that. But from what I remember, I do recall speaking to them and they did mention they don't work with us. Unfortunately. So, I mean, we could go ahead and double check and give them a call again and see if maybe they've changed their mind. But from what I remember, I do recall speaking to them.
And I think it's worth noting, if you guys are advocating for yourselves or if you're advocating for a client, this is just a one-time payment and it doesn't obligate the landlord to do anything except for accept the payment. And then, of course, the landlord should, by Illinois law, return that security deposit to the tenant once the tenancy is over, minus any reasonable and legal what am I trying to say? They can remove funding for things legally that you would typically take out of the security deposit. So we're trying to express to the landlords that this really is an easy thing for them to take. They're not obligated to anything. They would approach it in the exact same way that if the tenant handed them the security deposit. So if that's something that you feel comfortable doing, advocating for yourselves or advocating for your clients, please do. The landlord's application is quite literally a 20 font, 1-page application, and it can be boiled down to where can we give you money? So it doesn't really force them to go out of their way to have a problem. They would accept the funds as if you handed them or your client handed the funding to them. Ooh, this is another great question in the chat. So somebody said, will this work with houses for rent on Zillow? So one of the things that I think is really important to understand is this program is for residential units in Lake County, but it doesn't really matter where you come by them. So it could be an apartment, it could be a condo, it could be a townhouse, a single family home, it could be a coach house, it could be a tiny house, it could be a mobile home or manufactured home. You can find it anywhere. You don't have to have a voucher to participate in this program. You don't have to have any kind of other public assistance. You could be a market rate renter, a voucher holder, public housing. This could be for renting a public housing unit. So there aren't really restrictions in the way that there were with other programs, and you can find this unit that you're renting anywhere you like. Okay, and then how long does the full, actually, it's a great question. Natalie and Daisy, will you address this? How long does the full process take? So we're going to start the process on today is the day that the person applies and makes their appointment for you, with you and Daisy. Can you give us the rundown 24 hours before your appointment to the day that they have the landlord has a check in hand? How long does that take and what does that look like?
So it does vary. So if you are not a voucher holder, it's a way faster process. So I want to say, let's say you have an appointment on Monday. We complete your application, you have all your documentation ready. We go ahead and request a payment on Tuesday morning. We may have, it all depends on the payment method as well. So direct deposit, whether we're cutting a check for you. So I want to say within a week, we can have that payment.
That's
like I
typically
said,
what
it
I'm seeing.
changes. Yeah.
Let's talk about some complications if a person is a voucher holder. So what complications are you guys seeing if a person is coming with a voucher?
So for voucher holders, for sure the inspection. The inspection is very important. That we know it's passed inspection, as well as payment. I want to say if the landlord has not signed a HAP contract, we cannot release a payment either. So sometimes, even if the inspection did pass and we have all your documentation, if your landlord has not signed a HAP contract, it kind of holds up your application. So I don't know if Daisy has encountered any more things with voucher holders, but that's one of the major things I've seen.
Yeah, I could agree with Natalie. It's pretty much just the inspection and then the HAB contract and the pretty much receiving the HAB contract and the executed lease.
Yeah, and I also see a lot of clients who submit their application and want to, get a response right away. And unfortunately, since we do have a list, we can't have a check for you the next day. So that's something to keep in mind. If you are a voucher holder, there is a longer process.
So there was another question in the chat that I think is really important. I was gonna text the person privately, but I think it would be good to announce through the entire congregation. So the question was, how long is funding going to last? Right now, we are contracted through June of this year. However, this is a program that is anticipated to have its administrative agents, our agent is an admin agency for this. They anticipate us to be refunded every year. So theoretically, if we get refunded in May, even if the program funding was to terminate in June, we would be refunded for another year. So we are anticipating this will be a perpetual program and will continue, into the future. This is very similar to how Catholic Charities has administered this program for some time now. So we'll be funded very similarly to that. For the record, Catholic Charities is taking applications through the very similar funding source to the IDHS for folks who are looking to remain in their unit and have fallen behind. So they're taking those tenants, and we are taking folks who are moving to a new unit and looking for security deposit assistance there. So to answer the question, hopefully this will be a perpetual program. As of right now, we have funding through June of this year. But the moment that we have A, ran out of funds, or B, they have terminated us, I'm hoping that'll never happen, but let's say it does. Again, this is of course state funded, so we're dependent on our state to give us the money. So if we do run out of funds, we will shut down the application process completely. We will delete the JOT form. We will make sure that nobody can get to it. We will announce it to all of our agency partners, put it on our website, put it on social media. So we will get the notice out to you if this program is ending. And if it's not, if everything is still up and running, please apply. So forgive me, there was another question in the chat. Does security deposit start right away? I haven't received my voucher yet. So this is a great question. So we do receive a lot of applicants who are in the beginning of the voucher process, right? So they have received their voucher, they're out in the world, they're searching. Natalie and Daisy had said earlier, please don't apply. If you are a voucher holder, please do not apply for security deposit until you have completed your inspection. And the reason for that is that we have found that the security deposit process takes so much less time than the voucher process does, because you have your inspection and then you have the contract negotiations that the HQS team performs. So does it start right away? Yeah, Natalie and Daisy are very quick about this. So really with voucher holders, you just have to make sure the inspection is done, and that way the process will be very quick. And then somebody also asked, can I have help with a voucher? Unfortunately, that isn't our department. And the bad news about that is the LCHA does not have an open waiting list for the vouchers. So if I'm going to be really honest with you, when the voucher waiting list opens, we do get inundated with quite a lot of applications. From all the applications that we received, a certain number are chosen by lottery. those folks will go on the waiting list. That doesn't guarantee you're going to get a voucher. And if you get on the waiting list, that doesn't guarantee that you get a voucher within a particular period of time. The way we like to describe this is, let's say the voucher program is a big Thanksgiving table. There are only so many chairs. So there's only so many vouchers. You can't take a chair to sit down at the table until somebody leaves that chair. So even if you're on the waiting list, unfortunately, somebody has to graduate from the program, or they don't need it anymore, they pass away, or they move on, or what have you, in order for one of those vouchers, one of those chairs to be open. So again, being on the voucher waiting list does not guarantee that you are going to get that voucher or that you can use it. And even that being said, unfortunately, the voucher waiting list isn't even open, and we don't even have a planned date for when it's going to. But we are required by HUD standards to announce when it is going to be open, and you will find that on social media, on our website, and I do believe we actually have to advertise it in the papers as well, or at least in some sort of public forum. All right. And then Tamara Patrick, Natalie and Daisy, she asked, hello, we will have to have all the landlord information before applying. Could you answer that question?
So you do have to have all the landlord information. So like we said earlier, we need the unit information, we need the landlord's contact information. And also it's important to know that we don't cover application fees. So if someone's looking at different units, different apartments, different houses, we are not able to cover the application fees, only the security deposit. And unfortunately, yes, you do need to be approved for the unit in order to submit the application.
Okay. Is there anything, Natalie and Daisy, that you would recommend a person bring with them, even if that's documentation or just an Outlook or anything like that, to applying for this program? Is there any best practices, anything you want to warn folks about? Just so if they get in front of it, they know what to expect or what to prevent on their end.
Sorry, what's your question, Liz?
I just want to know if there's any best practices you guys wanted to share with applicants, or basically if you could say to anybody, either coaching somebody or applying for themselves, like, hey, make sure you have this done, and this will make it speed forward real quick.
Well, I believe having your documentation ready is very important. Just because we see a lot of applications that are submitted with no documents. We do have to reach out, making sure that we remind clients of this. And so whoever is ready, we don't have to reschedule them. You're always welcome to give us a call if you don't know what documents you can upload. So if you're in the process of submitting your application, you want to give us a call while you're, in the middle of the application, you're always welcome to ask us if this is a document that maybe you can send to our security deposit email, because you are also welcome to do that. You can upload any documents that you have at the time, but if you know you're missing something that is required, you can always send them to the security deposit email that we did provide at the start of the presentation. Those are some of the important things. I would also kind of give your landlord a heads up that, hey, I applied for security deposit assistance. You are going to be getting a call, an email from this agency, just so you know, just so you're not lost in the process. Also for voucher holders, kind of give them the heads up that it's not the same department as the voucher. A lot of people who are voucher holders believe we're under the same department, and that's not the case. So there's a lot of confusion there also. Regarding maybe income, I want to say just making sure that it's up to date. Do you have any other things, Daisy?
I honestly think that the documents is essential for us to be able to move your application forward. And also staying up to date with your application and being present and, you know, reaching out to us in regards to your application. Because I mean, we do have that appointment and, you know, if we do need any other additional documents, we do let you know, and we also give you a deadline of 7 days, as we mentioned on the presentation. But I could say that the process is as fast as we receive documents from both parties, you and the landlord. So if you're, you know, up to date with your application and you're like a very, you know, you're keeping yourself updated, is there anything else that I need? What else can I submit? That pretty much gets your application moving the fastest, rather than us, you know, having to call you and be like, hey, you still haven't turned this in, like, hey, we still need this, you know. So I would recommend that, you know, if you can, try to really stay up to date and really make sure that it's essential for you to have the documents, and if you want this application to move forward, because we do assist with first come, first serve. And of course, you know, if we have all your documents, then we're gonna make sure that your application is moving as fast as possible, rather than, you know, if we're missing documents, we're gonna have to be calling you and reminding you like, hey, your deadline is coming up. So I think the only tip that I can give all of you guys is to really stay up to date with your application and making sure that your documents are submitted. I think that's very essential for you to move your application forward.
Yes, and don't be scared about any doubts, any questions. You can always call us if you're in doubt. And that gives us, you know, a heads up, like they said, that you are, you know, looking for that update on the status of your application.
Okay, I have one more question, and then we're not really seeing any more in the chat, so I'll have one more question, and then I'll open the floor, and if nobody else is curious, we can say, oh, please, go ahead, I'm sorry, I interrupted
I
someone.
have a question. I have a really big question. So on this question here, I did the application and it's asking you, are you applying for assistance for a rental unit? And not yet moved in. I put in, it said, and I said yes. These are a few questions and I put them in honestly, and it's still telling me that I'm not applicable.
Okay. So let's actually take a look. One of the things that we sometimes do, and I'm going to share my screen if you don't mind,
Okay.
while I talk. So here we have the Security Deposit Assistance Program intake form. For everybody who hasn't done this application yet, this is going to be the landing page. So when you go through it, these questions are basically the ones that are, hey, if you don't qualify, we don't want to waste your time because the application can take a half hour. So why waste a half hour? Right? So when we go through this, what Rochelle might be indicating is that she's hit a button that will disqualify her. So for example, if your rental unit is not located in Lake County, Illinois, you hit the word no, you're going to automatically be sent to the rejection page. So let's go ahead. So I'm just going to hit a bunch of this, that's fine. So I hit a rejection answer. Is this rental unit located in Lake County, Illinois? Obviously, all the rental units have to be located in Lake County, Illinois. So by saying no, I'm going to get rejected.
Right.
Okay, so that's the rejection, right? So let's go back here. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and walk through the preliminary required questions, and effectively what answers are going to be the ones that allow you to move forward. Are you applying for assistance in a rental unit you have not yet moved into? So you can't be currently occupying the unit. So yes, I'm applying. I haven't moved in. Is it located in Lake County, Illinois? Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Have you already been accepted for this unit? That's the big one. Yes, I have.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, you have to inspect the unit prior to application. This is some good legalese right here. Basically, it means that you've actually looked at the unit before and effectively attest that it's not a slum and that it doesn't violate any kind of health codes. Are you able to cover the financial cost of housing, utilities, transportations after the subsidy is ended? Yes, that's a requirement. Are you able to document the temporary crisis? Yes, that is a requirement. Have you received funding within this specific program within the past 2 years? You have not, so you understand. Or again, you cannot have received funding from this particular program within the past 2 years. And then the program requires that the landlord receives funds. I understand that. And then this program is limited funds. First come, first serve. I understand. That, in those questions are going to let you go on to the next step. However, if you don't qualify, if you don't meet those preliminary questions, it's going to reject you right away, because those are truly the actual, the core, the core questions on how you would qualify. So again, it's, do you live in Lake County, Illinois? Are you projecting that you will be moving into this unit? You can't have already been living there. Have you already been accepted for this unit? So Ms. Rochelle, if those don't qualify you, you might be getting denied because you don't qualify for the program.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
So again, if you have any questions, you can always reach out to that security deposit email. So what I was going to ask Natalie and Daisy, if you could step in and just say, what is the most frequent reason a person is denied for the program?
So most frequent reasons would be the landlord not participating. So if the landlord is not willing to participate, if you are, if you don't have any income, if you can't provide any income, even if you're not receiving cash gifts, any documentation to prove that you can cover your expenses, unfortunately, that will be a reason why we have to deny someone. We have yet to deny someone for that, but it will be a reason if you don't have that documentation. If you're not in Lake County, you're not eligible for the program. If someone is already residing at a unit and let's say that you just paid your security deposit. Unfortunately, we cannot reimburse that amount, so we cannot take your application. So keep in mind, even if you already did submit your application, if you already paid your security deposit in full, we can't take your application. You wouldn't be eligible. That does not mean that if you made a partial payment that we can help you, but if you made the full amount, the full payment amount, then yes, we cannot take it. If you paid, let's say, half of your security deposit, then yes, you are still eligible for the program. Those are the main reasons I've seen. But yeah, I mean, there's always different cases, so we might encounter different scenarios. And
Okay, perfect.
I see another question.
So yeah, it looks like it says, what if you have already living and haven't paid the security deposit? So we are currently working on a case right now that's very similar to that. And we have asked a question of the main funder to say, hey, this is the situation in our hands. Like, what can we do about this? Now, I'll tell you this. If you've moved and you've already paid, there's nothing we can do, because the grant funders have specifically said we cannot reimburse anybody. However, that's a little different situation. I've moved in but haven't paid it. So we are trying to determine what that approach will be. This is what I would say to the person who asked that question on an iPhone. I would apply. We are trying to determine the answer to that question right now. If you'd like, you can drop in the chat your email address, and we can send you the notification for what our funder says, whether it's yes or no. And it might be no. I won't lie to you. I'm not going to say we're guaranteed. It might be a no, but I want to get you your answer, because obviously that's a great question, and more than a few folks go through that. So if you want to drop your email address in the chat, that would be very helpful, and we can get you a solid answer. I expect by the end of the week. Natalie, what do you think?
Yeah, the end of the week.
Okay, perfect. Perfect.
I also wanted to add that if you did pay your security deposit and you're applying for forward rent, we can't assist you unless, you know, you haven't paid both the security deposit and you're looking to get forward rent. So I think Daisy did cover that, but just so everyone.
Will you say that one more time? I'm sorry.
So anyone who is looking for forward rental assistance, if you already paid your security deposit, we cannot assist you with forward rent, unfortunately. So
Okay, so you're saying that you have to be applying for security deposit in order to access the rental assistance? Is that right?
yeah. Mhm.
And then, of course, the rental assistance is only for those whose rent is more than 40% of their gross monthly income, correct?
Oh, yes, that's important too. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
Is it possible someone can call me so I can go over this again? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Of course. Yeah, actually, yeah, that's one of the things that I think it's valuable. If you are applying for this and you need help actually getting the application done.
Yes,
Yeah, absolutely. So Natalie, Daisy, will you coordinate with Ms. Rochelle to see if we can set up a call or an appointment or something like that to go to actually execute the application with her?
thank you.
Yeah,
And then,
if you can drop your, well, actually, maybe your email, and I will reach out for your phone number, or if you want to direct, I don't know if you can send a private message or if you don't want to share your contact information.
I'm sending it to you right now.
Sounds good. Okay, got it. Thank you.
okay, anybody have any other questions? Well, perfect. I am going to, one more time, I'm going to drop the actual link in the chat just to everybody. If you are interested in applying for the Security Deposit Assistance Program, that is the link to apply. If you do have questions, of course, Natalie and Daisy's contact information are in the chat as well. We do take the approach that if you think you should apply, you should apply. Don't hold back. Of course, we're willing to address any kind of questions beforehand or during, if you have any. Everybody's going to get a copy of this presentation in the slides, as well as what we call our procedures, as well as a link to a few other affordable housing units in the area, just so you can have that at your hands, and some information on fair housing. We plan on putting this on our YouTube page, which will be linked in the email that we send everybody. So if you do have any questions, you can go back and you can watch the presentation in full. But of course, if you need to reach out to us regarding this program or any other that we have, please feel free to do so. And we hope to see you at our upcoming workshops. We have a couple of really great ones coming around the bend. Specifically, we have budgeting workshops and those about fixing your credit or credit education, pre-purchase workshops, fair housing, how to read your lease. And then we have one on the 28th coming up about the court-based rental assistance program, which is a very similar program. It provides rental assistance for those who are in eviction and effectively provides a route out of eviction. So we hope to see you at some of the workshops that are coming up in the future. And I will send a link to apply, or excuse me, to register for any of those free workshops. If you do think that anybody in our area or outside of our area would benefit from any of our programs, please feel free to pass along our information as well as a link to our workshops. And thank you again for attending. If you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out. Okay. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, everyone.
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.